Okay, this shows that I'm live, so I'm here to do a bit of a talk a little bit about some things I've heard about January 6th, and someone has sent me this article from an organization called Right Side Broadcasting. Um, I'm going to read it real quick. It says, evidence has surfaced. Excuse me, I'm going to read the headline first. It says, Capitol Police memo confirms Trump administration's offer to deploy the National Guard in D.C. on January 6th. It says, evidence has surfaced suggesting that the Trump administration indeed offered to deploy the National Guard to D.C. on January 6, 2021, thanks to new police report on the timeline of events. According to the report obtained by Just the News, the Trump Pentagon suggested sending National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. for 4 days before January 6th. The Capitol Police's official timeline states that Carol Corbin texted USCP Deputy Chief Sean Gallagher, uh, that's short for United States Capitol Police, of the Protective Service Bureau. I'm terrible with reading, like reading aloud. I couldn't read a teleprompter very well because I'd stumble all over it. I'm used to reading in my head. Um, the Capitol Police's official timeline states that Carol Corbin of the Department of Defense texted United States Capitol Police Deputy Chief Sean Gallagher, the Protective Service Bureau, to determine whether the USCP is considering a request for National Guard soldiers for January 6, 2021. Now, if you notice the camera moving on, it's because the laptop is sitting on my lap and it's not totally stable. Anyways, to continue on, it says, President Trump has long said he recommended moving thousands of National Guard troops into the U.S. Capitol on January 2021, blaming Nancy Pelosi for blocking the attempt to secure D.C. So Trump is taking credit for foreseeing this, supposedly, and offering Nancy Pelosi, according to what he's saying. In a statement made in February, Trump stated, there would have been no January 6th as we know it if Nancy Pelosi heeded my recommendation to bring 10,000 soldiers or the National Guard into the Capitol. End the unselect community January 6th witch hunt right now, he says. Further, the report contends that the event may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and public safety. Just the News, the organization, reported that Gallagher stated via text that support for the National Guard was not forthcoming. Additionally, the official timeline states that on Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, COP Sund, I'm not sure what, Chief of Police, I think that might be what that means. Chief of Police Sund informs SSAA and HSAA in separate discussions about the D.C. National Guard ability to provide 125 troops if necessary. However, based on the official report, DoD support via the Pentagon, which would have been provided in the form of National Guard troops, was allegedly refused. Former Chief of Staff to President Trump, Kash Patel, told Just the News that this new official timeline of events lends even more credibility to the notion that National Guard support was stonewalled by the House and Senate Sergeant at Arms who report to Pelosi. Ultimately, the National Guard was not deployed to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th before the event, leading President Trump to post the following question. Why is crazy Nancy Pelosi and her files, which reportedly have been largely destroyed and deleted, not under investigation for properly securing the Capitol with soldiers or the National Guard that are strongly recommended to her by me and others? Now, as far as the allegations of her destroying and deleting files, I don't guess I understand what that's about. Because I'm not sure if that's happened. I don't know where he's getting that. Maybe it's somewhere on right wing media. I don't really know. It's not been reported in on mainstream media that I know of, more legacy media. But so Trump often makes things up and just throws things at people, and it may or may not be true. Sometimes there's a kernel of truth to what he says. Then there's a lot of times it's overly exaggerated, and sometimes just straight up made up. It happens all the time, and I could go through a list of things if you would like, but anyway, so these are some things that I'm going over. To continue on, actually, that looks like that was the end of the article. It kind of seems abrupt to me. But then let's go to that's on Right Side Broadcasting Network, I think is what it's called. Let's switch over to the Just the News article. And their headline says, Trump Pentagon first offered National Guard to Capitol 4 days before January 6 riots, memo shows. The official Capitol Police timeline validates Trump administration's account, shows Democrats' fateful rejection of offers. Seems absolutely illogical, one official wrote about security posture hours before riot began. Okay, sorry, my tone's not very interesting. It sounds very dull and flat. The Pentagon first raised the possibility of sending National Guard troops to the U.S. Capitol 4 days before January 6 riots, setting in motion a series of rejections by Capitol Police and Democrats that left Congress vulnerable as threats of violence were rising, according to government memos that validate Trump administration officials' long-held claims. Okay. An official timeline of the January 6th tragedy assembled by Capitol Police shows that a Defense Department official reached out to a Capitol Police Deputy Chief Sean Gallagher on January 2nd, 2021, to see if a request for troops was forthcoming, but the offer was quickly rejected after a consultation with then Chief Steve Sund. Carol Corbin of DOD texts USCP Deputy Chief Sean Gallagher, Protective Service Bureau, to determine whether USCP is considering a request for the National Guard soldiers for January 6, 2021 event. The timeline reads in the lone entry list for Saturday, the following morning. The timeline states Gallagher replies to DOD via text that a request for National Guard support not forthcoming at this time after consultation with Chief of Police Sund. The rejection came as the Capitol Police Department was beginning to change its assessment, recognizing that the massive Trump rally to protest the November 2020 election results planned for January 6, 2021 had the potential for violence. Earlier analysis suggests such violence was unlikely, and the January 6th event was likely to be similar to the previous million MAGA March rallies in November and December, police records show. So that's what everyone thought, including myself. I pretty much thought that the rally it had some potential for violence, like Antifa and Proud Boy members fighting with each other in the street and stuff like that. So that's largely what I expected to happen as well. So it was really shocking when they reached the Capitol and started storming in. So anyway, that being said, that's what we largely expected. Just, the police department was just fine for that, so to speak. Now, clearly, they needed more cops on the force, and there are over 1,000 cops, I do believe, that work for the Capitol Hill Police Department. But I don't think they had all of them on there, so it was a very bad move on the sergeant of arms of both the Senate and the House. But I'm not going to read all the article of Just the News. I might post it just so that way y'all can have access to it, so y'all can read the whole thing for yourselves if you'd like. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cut to the timeline that the Capitol Police put out, the file that they put out. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is a lot of people that I know that are Trump supporters are using this timeline to try to excuse Trump of the January 6th protest or insurrection, rather. They're trying to say that he tried to offer the National Guard to Nancy Pelosi and she turned it down, so therefore it's her fault. They're trying to blame him for the insurrection nearly succeeding when she was the one who turned down the protection. But it's not so easy as that. Not so fast. Not so fast. So now let me read to you what the timeline actually says. Now, I read this last night. And it has several pages to it, and it's on the Just the News website. There's links on there you can find if you want to look. But here's, according to this, I'm reading the department timeline, United States Capitol Police timeline of events for January 6, 2021 attack. The document memorializes critical events leading up to and during the January 6, 2021 attack at the U.S. Capitol. The timeline is as follows. Wednesday, December 16th. These are some intelligence things. I'm going to swipe through because this starts at Wednesday, December 16th. I think had something to do with one of the rallies. And there's more to it. It seems to be pretty interesting somewhat. I'm going to get to the part of Saturday, January 2nd. And it's where, here is where Carol Corbin of the DOD texted USCP Deputy Chief Sean Gallagher to determine whether the USCP is considering a request for National Guard soldiers for the January 6, 2021 event. Now, this is what they're talking about. This is in the timeline. Now, that's assuming everything is correct. I don't have any reason to assume that it's not at this point. On Sunday, January 3rd, the USCP Deputy Chief Gallagher replies to DOD via text that a request for National Guard support is not forthcoming at this time after consultation with Chief of Police Sund. Revised special event assessment for January 6, 2021 2021 event issues to USCP executive team and deputies to both the Senate Sergeant at Arms and House Sergeant at Arms. Revised assessment indicates that approximately 6 members expected to speak at demonstration events scheduled. Revised assessment indicates that approximately 6 members are expected to speak at a demonstration of events scheduled on Capitol grounds. So this is on Capitol grounds. They're going to have like 6 members of whoever speaking. Revised assessment indicates that some militia members who are participating in this event and staying in Virginia plan to march into Washington, D.C. on January 5th while armed. It says nothing about Antifa. It says nothing about Black Lives Matter. And this is the article, the document that right-wingers are using to justify that Trump offered help before the insurrection, which is weird. Like, he's setting a fire, in their words, I guess by their logic, he's setting a fire, but then he's offering to have some water there for you to put the fire out with or to help put it out with. Well, if you're going to offer us water, why are you still going to set the fire too? It's counterintuitive. Doesn't make any sense. But according to this, the Department of Defense are the ones who reached out. It was not Trump. I don't know of any evidence whatsoever that Trump actually was the one who wanted this to be done. It was from the Department of Defense. Trump apparently knows about it. He apparently found out about it. It was under his watch. But Trump didn't necessarily have anything to do with the DOD reaching out to offer armed support for Capitol Police. It was his Department of Defense, yes. That part we can confirm is true according to this document. But it's not confirmed that Trump had anything to do with that, because he was kind of wanting the insurrection to succeed. So the claim that he offered it to Pelosi is not true, because Pelosi never found out about it until after. And I doubt Trump had anything to do with it. No, there's no evidence to support that he actually did. None whatsoever. But it is true that the DOD reached out to the U.S. Capitol Police. There is evidence of that, clearly. And so it's interesting that none of these are Antifa members that they're keeping an eye on either. It's militia members. And so then there's another revised assessment, and it indicates there's also indication that white supremacist groups may be attending the protest. White supremacist groups. Now, not everyone there at that protest was white supremacists. There were plenty of good people there that got caught up in the fray. Probably the vast majority, but there was a certain core of people instigating the entire thing that had done their homework, trying to figure out where the weak points were past security to get into the house. They are the ones that are the bad apples. They're the problems, not all the innocent and rather ignorant citizens that just kind of followed in after them. They were just kind of there and saw some people going to the Capitol, and it just seemed like a cool thing to do, so why not? If you remember the crazy guy who was painted all colorful and had the Viking horns, he was one of those that really wasn't a bad guy. He just kind of got caught up in the fray. You would assume that he was evil because of the way he would look. He just looked so wackadoodle, with the Viking horns and stuff. But no, there was no evidence. He was just there protesting and just got caught up in the fray. And I think he's got some mental issues. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, so I don't know. But he seems to have some problems. He means well, but it's kind of easily taken advantage of, I'm afraid. I don't know that, but that's kind of my assessment until I learn more information. But then there, I guess it looks like another revised state assessment or something like that. And this appears to look really bad on the U.S. Capitol Police, really. It says, due to the tense political environment following the 2020 election, the threat of disruptive actions of violence cannot be ruled out. Supporters of the current president see January 6, 2021 as the last opportunity to overturn the results of the presidential election, which I thought meant politicians voting to object to electors and send them back to the states for recertification. That's what I was thinking. But apparently the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys had other things in mind. And Mr. Trump, as we'll soon learn, did too. This last sense of desperation and disappointment may lead to a more of an incentive to become violent, unlike previous post-election protests. The targets of the pro-Trump supporters are not necessarily the counter-protesters as they were previously, but rather Congress itself is the target on the 6th. As outlined above, there has been a worrisome call for protesters to come to these events armed, and there is the possibility that protesters may be inclined to become violent. Further, unlike the events on November 14, 2020 and December 12, 2020, there are several more protests scheduled on January 6th, and the majority of them will be on the Capitol grounds. Now, there was a couple protests, one in December, one in November, where things did get violent, but it was more like protesters and counter-protesters clashing, that type of thing. The two protests expected to be the largest of the day: the Women for America First protest at the Ellipse and the Stop the Steal protest in areas 8 and 9. They draw thousands of participants, and both have been prompted by Trump himself. The Stop the Steal protest in particular does not have a permit. Several high-profile speakers, including members of Congress, are expected to speak at the event. This combined with the Stop the Steal's propensity to attract white supremacist militia members and others who actively promote violence may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike. Shows there was no Antifa. Now, I think there might have been one or two Antifa members that were there to see what was going on, and they got, I think they were there, Antifa, one or two might have been there and got caught up in it, but it was Antifa was not a part of the insurrection. It was Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and such. I'm going to move on past that. I'll try to post that. But here on CNN Politics, it says takeaways from the primetime January 6th committee hearings. This is what we learned from the last hearings. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack held its first primetime hearing Thursday evening, detailing the findings of the panel's investigation and playing new video from closed-door depositions of members of former President Donald Trump's team depicting the violence at the Capitol. Thursday hearing was the first in the series this month that will highlight the findings of the panel's investigation, which included interviews with more than 1,000 people about how Trump and his team tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election on multiple fronts. While many details have been reported by CNN and other media outlets, the committee's hearings will try to tell the story of January 6th to the American people. The committee played a compilation of disturbing footage from the January 6th attack. They included some never-before-seen material, including bird's-eye view footage from security cameras that showed the enormous pro-Trump mob as it started swarming the Capitol grounds. The footage also showed how the crowd took its cues directly from Trump, with one rioter reading a Trump tweet on a megaphone from other rioters to hear. In that tweet, Trump criticized Pence for announcing that he would not overturn the results of the 2020 election while presiding over the joint session of Congress to certify Joe Biden's win. After that moment, the committee's montage showed a now infamous clip of Trump supporters chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Then they showed a photograph of a makeshift noose and gallows that the rioters erected near the Capitol, as well as haunting clip of other rioters shouting, "Nancy, Nancy," as they converged on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office searching for her. These clips immediately harken back the horrors of January 6th, which can easily get lost amid the partisan bickering over the committee and its investigation. But underneath this probe, there was a violent and deadly attack that injured more than 140 police officers and led to several deaths. The visceral footage served as a frightening reminder of a dark day in U.S. history. 1. Trump didn't want the riot to stop. He was not in favor of sending in the National Guard. The committee revealed testimony from Trump White House officials who said the former president did not want the U.S. Capitol attack to stop, angrily resisted his own advisors who were urging him to call off the rioters and thought his own vice president deserved to be hanged. That sounds insane. It sounds crazy. But people recall him thinking that maybe he deserved it. It also offers a new window into Trump's demeanor during the riot, something the committee has repeatedly suggested would be a key part of their public hearings. Vice Chair Liz Cheney described testimony from a witness who said Trump was aware of chants to hang Mike Pence and seemed to approve of them. They haven't named the witness, but maybe in the future they will. Cheney has previously characterized Trump's inaction on January 6th during the 187 minutes as a dereliction. It's able to be as thorough as possible because I'm not good at YouTubing. This is totally new for me. But I will be posting this as well. And maybe later I can follow up on more. Please leave me comments, though. But be respectful. If you have a different perspective or have tough questions, go ahead and leave them. And as long as you're respectful, I'm not going to mention to comments that are just rude. Or help or edit what I'm saying, kind of correct some things I'm saying. That's fine as well. But I've been talking for more than 25 minutes, and I'm kind of getting tired. I'm not used to this. So anyways, thanks for watching, and y'all have a good rest of your day.